Well, hi everybody. My name is John Willett. In case you have never looked at one of these before, you're finding this video on potholes and Cadillac dreams, but the audio portion will be on the Buzzsprout The Assaulted page that I have set up for the various chapters that I'm doing. And since we're past chapter 10, I thought I would have a little fun, and as little fun as you possibly can have with the subject matter, and let you guys know some insight into how we came up with some of the places and things and whatever that we have done with each character. First of all, as you know, the main character's name is Raymond J. Wilson. My name happens to be John Raymond Willett. Yeah, raise me. If you've been reading the book or listening to the book, you could certainly tell that by all the swearing, because most of you who know me know that I like to swear like a sailor. Kind of enjoy that. So we can go down the line from chapter to chapter. Maxine obviously lives in Alexandria. I was born and raised in Alexandria. She she works in D.C., did all her stuff in D.C. I'm very, very familiar with D.C., having lived there for so long. And I actually know the townhouses that I'm describing that she lived in before she went on that last trip to the Naval Yards. In terms of David, he's the one in Sutherland Springs. There's a very, very important piece there. Jeff Hetrick has been my friend, my best friend, for over 50 years. I used his name and basically his life, except for the part about his uncle being shot in Atlanta. That is fiction, but essentially his life is right there. He's been that close to me for 50 years, so that was kind of my tip of the cap to Jeff and what he's meant to me over the years. And so that's where that came from. With Stacy, which is the Fort Hood shootings, her being in Fort Belvoir is important because that was my stomping grounds for quite a while, the Fort Belvoir area, down Richmond Highway in Alexandria. I knew that area quite well, and I was very familiar with it, so was very familiar with talking about Fort Belvoir. Jerry, who's Jerry Peters Jr., who's Virginia Tech, he goes to Bishop Ireton High School, which is where I went from 1970 through 1974. His parents are basically composites of folks that I watched in Alexandria / Washington, D.C. for a number of years. Kind of took a little bit from here, a little bit from there, but WRC TV in Washington, D.C. is an actual TV station, as is, and I probably need to explain this, everybody that you read about in there, most of them are actual people. My thought has always been that this would probably end up playing much better as a TV series, miniseries, movie, whatever, than it does as a book. I understand that should this get in some publisher's hands and they're really interested in publishing it, that they're probably going to make me change a bunch of names. I put the real names in there so that I would know who I was talking about if I had to change something. So that's just to let you all know. But most of the names and the places that you see are actual names, actual places of the research, particularly in terms of the actual events themselves, the actual mass shootings. Those are names and faces and places that are part of the shooting, including, I mentioned Sutherland Springs, the restaurant right across the street from the church is the actual restaurant right across the street from the church. The first station that Jerry works at is in Bangor, Maine, and I lived in Bar Harbor for 14 years and actually watched that station. So that's there. Virginia Tech, obviously there was a shooting there, but it's also a tip of the cap to Jeff Hetrick's daughter, who also went to Virginia Tech. Remy Ramirez finds out about the power of a camera when he takes it on a field trip and has everybody asking him to take their picture. I did that. I had a Polaroid 60-second camera, just like I described in the book. But my field trip, my 8th grade field trip, was to the beach. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine? 8th grade boy with all these girls posing for him because they want their pictures taken. And I always took 2, one for them, one for me. Yeah, I know. But I did. So that is right from my life. I actually did that in my 8th grade field trip to the beach. I actually took pictures for boys and girls, but I did it. So that's just to let you all know that, that's part of my history. Pulse, Les and Donnie. Les is from Phoenix, Arizona. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for 7 years. I actually know about Rawhide travel because I used to go up and down West Bell Road, and I remembered being there. And when I kind of did the research and went, oh yeah, Rawhide. That's kind of how that ended up. I've actually seen it. NCL is part of Les's history because NCL happens to be my wife's and my favorite cruise line. We go on NCL as much as we possibly can. We love NCL. So that's a shout out to NCL. We think they're terrific. Donnie ends up working at the Fontainebleau because my father introduced me to the Fontainebleau when I was a kid. We used to go down to Miami all the time, and we always used to visit the Fontainebleau, and we never stayed at the Fontainebleau. My dad at that time didn't have the type of money he had later, but then he had moved on from Miami to the Bahamas. But we used to visit the Fontainebleau, and I always used to think it was really cool. And he would tell me about all the stories about Sinatra playing there, and Sammy Davis, and Dean Martin, and all the people that he loved. And so that's how the Fontainebleau made it. In terms of Matthias being a brilliant captain, I saw that a million times with my father. My father, he liked to run around. And unfortunately, he kind of included me in on that. So while he was cheating on my mother, I was watching all the things that he was doing. And which is, it's just bizarre, but it's true. And I saw any number of times he had a certain set of restaurants that he really liked to go to impress women. And he would take, for example, a blonde one night and a brunette the very next night. And the captain would say, oh, you've brought in blah, 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 and would never mention the fact that he saw him last night with the blonde. And, of course, my dad would give him an enormous tip. And that is directly from my life, basically. I saw it scads of times. If the captain was any good, he never mentioned the fact that he saw my father the night before with somebody else. He played it off as if, oh, isn't it wonderful for you to bring in such and so and so and such? And, yeah. So I saw that millions of times. I mentioned Better Than Sex Desserts, where the boys went just before they went to Pulse, because I want to go there. My wife and I want to go there. We've never been there. We go to Orlando all the time. We live now in Daytona Beach, so we think about it all the time, and we've never been there, and we want to go there. So I mentioned Better Than Sex Desserts. I also mentioned the Boathouse and Eddie V's because my wife and I have been there and have had amazing meals at both of them. So if this does anything for you all living in Florida who are watching this, the Boathouse in Disney Springs and Eddie V's in just outside, it's about kind of a couple miles from Disney Springs, but Eddie V's, it's the name of the restaurant and it is sensational. I would recommend it. Emily Curtis, this would be Parkman Douglas High School. I mentioned Billy's stress-related injuries, playing almost 365 days a year of baseball, because my second wife was a brilliant physical therapist, and she worked for a brilliant orthopedic surgeon and a group of great doctors in Arlington, Virginia. And she used to tell parents, she used to warn parents constantly over and over, do not let your son or daughter play in one sport. Have them play all sports, because each sport requires a different set of muscles. If you constantly play a certain sport all the time, you will tend to stress out those muscles and they will cause injury. Warn them thousands of times, and each time they'd come back and say, oh, little Johnny's done this, little Billy's done that, and blah, blah, blah. And she would say, is he playing any other sport? No, we just decided we'd stick with baseball. And normally it was baseball, but baseball, basketball, football, whatever it was, they would stay with it and go to training camps and do this and do that and do that and do this. And because they were stage parents, and their kids would get injured, and it would impede their progress, don't you know? Used to drive my second wife crazy because she warned them in advance, this is what's going to happen, and then it happens. So I included it in there as kind of a tip of the cap to my second wife. Somewhere in Time is a movie that I mentioned, and then the music, accompanying music. If you ever get a chance to just listen to the Somewhere in Time soundtrack, you will be taken to another place. It is some of the most gorgeous music I've ever heard in my life, and it's a cool little movie, and I highly recommend it. It's from 1980. Jane Seymour, guy that played Superman. He is Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve, Jane Seymour. It's a wonderful movie, and you would love it. And the music is absolutely breathtaking. And that's why I included it in there, because Emily Curtis can play it. Emily Curtis can do anything. Oh, by the way, and I'm not going to mention the artist, but Emily, as far as we know right at this moment in the book, is the only person that I specifically designed for an actual actor/singer. The description, the musical ability, the voice, the everything is a specific person, and I'm thinking of when I wrote her character. So there is another one later in the book who I have a specific person in mind. So that's kind of like the movie TV thing I said earlier. There are others in there that, I kind of was thinking, well, maybe they'd be really good. But Emily Curtis is a specific, actual, real-life person that I described. Hopefully getting it right for that particular character, because I can see this person playing Emily Curtis in a miniseries, movie, whatever. So, little sidebar there. All the musical references you hear about Emily are me. That's the type of music I like. And it's all over the spectrum. But I love music, and I love listening to music, particularly when I'm driving. And I'm a big Jerry Lee Lewis fan. I think I mentioned him a couple of times. The deputy sheriff, when he tells Emily to leave, that's an actual incident that happened to a client of my father's. He represented the family. The family was abusive to the eldest daughter. Was it the eldest? Yes, the eldest daughter. And she was fully emancipated, but they were abusive. So certain things happened, and a deputy sheriff, I think it was Fairfax County, but that's I'm thinking way. I just remember the general incident, but that actually happened where they did some creative writing, put her in a safe house because she was indirectly involved in something to get her away from her parents because they were being abusive. So I didn't make that up. That's actually something that actually happened, that could happen, I assume. So that's that. Now, Elizabeth Bloomfield, who's the Fort Lauderdale airport. She attends, and her parents teach at, George Mason University. I went to George Mason University and graduated from George Mason University in 1974 to 1978. The description I give of George Mason before it became, I need my hands here, George Mason University, is exactly what I went through when I was going to college. It was 4 buildings. They were just starting the housing for the students, the dorms. And I went to business school. Most of my classes were in the old Paul VI High School on Route 50, an old high school building right next to the McDonald's, which was terrible because I spent a lot of time there. But that was my college. My college was not a beautiful tree-lined, gorgeous, fabulous. No, it was crap. Until, of course, George Mason University became George Mason University. And everybody tells me, oh, you went to George Mason? Well, they don't know the George Mason I saw. But I described the George Mason to you all in a little few blurbs just before the Bloomfields decided to move from Princeton to George Mason, which is actually a very, very good idea at that time because they were starting to rev up and build and bring in all kinds of guests and, like I said, ex-congressmen and senators and, having past presidents lecture there and, amazing. Just an amazing, amazing group of people they have now. I mean, George Mason is beautiful. It's just a beautiful, beautiful campus, and it's huge, absolutely huge. It wasn't huge when I went. It was small. It was very, very small. And of course, Virginia. I am very, very familiar with Virginia, having been born and raised in Alexandria, but I spent a lot of time in Fairfax and also spent a lot of time in Vienna, and specifically the M4 restaurant, which I actually went to any number of times. So I know exactly where it is, and I know exactly the park that's near it because I ate at that park. So that was included. Now the toughest, this is what we're going to end with here, the toughest part of going back and doing this was the fact that I included our cat Jeter in the book. He was gray with pinstripes. He was a very handsome cat indeed, which I mentioned 4 or 5 times. And we lost him in this past July, as a lot of you know. And it was very difficult to talk about, as you can tell. And it's very tough to read. And I had thought about maybe doing the one thing I didn't want to do, which is rewrite and not mention him. But he was too special to us. And so I kept him in. And I think I have more stops and starts in that section than I do of any other chapter in the book because I had to get my emotions in check. As you just heard, he was extremely special, and I miss him every day, every single day. But anyway, this will go on the, as I said, you'll find this as you found it, if you're watching it, on Potholes and Cadillac Dreams. It will be special, and I will make sure that I put the Assaulted on it so that everybody can see it. This will also go as chapter 11A in the book so that you guys can get a kind of a background of where I came up with this stuff. Again, these shootings are actual shootings. These are mass shootings that actually occurred. I have put fictional characters into them. I have put some fiction around it, but the actual shootings are the actual shootings, and I have not changed anything. I have done extensive research to find out what the shooters did, where they shot at, what they did. For example, when Stacy moves suddenly, that's because there was something he was shooting at. He actually turned that way. And also, I will never put, there's only one, and that's coming up, but there's only one shooter's name in the whole book, because I'm not going to dignify them. I'm not going to give them anything other than the fact that they're heinous bastards. And there's another thing I guess I should bring up, is that Raymond Wilson makes it a point, and he will make a point several times, that he lives in Front Royal, Virginia, that he is well aware of people who have guns for hunting. He is well aware that people are out there protecting their homes, that they have their handguns. He has no challenge with them having hunting rifles, having handguns, making sure that they're locked and safe away from kids or family or whatever. What he doesn't like is semi-automatic weapons, things that you can pull a trigger and have multiple shots occur, that they're easy to get, particularly here in the state of Florida, and that you can get as many of them as you want, and there is no national registry, and there is no getting rid of, making them illegal. Semi-automatic weapons are available. As a matter of fact, gun show folks here in Florida tend to put either an AK-47 or an AR-15 on their billboards as you're traveling up and down the roads to say, they've got a gun show coming. He's calling for them to be banned. He's calling for a national registry. He's calling for a banning of all semi-automatic weapons, including handguns. So I think we ought to make that clear, that this is not a situation where guns are being banned. Guns are being banned, like in the UK, for example. We keep watching shows in the UK, detective shows, and nobody's carrying a gun. It's really weird. But that these type of weapons, the type of weapons that their only useful purpose is to shoot many people very quickly, that they need to be banned. Pretty simple. Or just put in the hands of law enforcement or our military. Period. End of sentence. End of statement. That's the way it should be. That's what he feels. Keeping in mind that Raymond J. Wilson is RJW, and my initials are JRW, you can kind of figure where we're going with this. So anyway, I wanted to finish with that. We're at 22 minutes. Holy cow. We've been chatting a while. Nice talking with you all again, those of you that remember the Potholes and Cadillac Dreams. We'll be getting back to that because there's lots going on. But in the meantime, I want to get this book done, and we're going to have a similar chat down the road just to give you guys an insight on the book and where we got the ideas and what's going on. In the meantime, thank you so very much for downloading it. If you haven't downloaded it, please do so. It's free. I'm not charging anything. I really just want to get it out there so that people can listen to it, can talk about it, and perhaps find that one person who might be interested in doing a little something more with it. I appreciate it. Thanks again. Hope you are having a great week, and I'm sure we'll talk again. Bye.